The walls in courtroom 3B of the Lowndes County Courthouse were stained yellow near the ceiling vents, and the floor creaked in all the wrong places. The air conditioning wheezed louder than it cooled, a tired exhale in a room that hadn't seen change in decades. Nothing about it looked modern, not the chairs, not the people, and certainly not the assumptions. At 9:02 a.m., Nathaniel Rourke walked into the courtroom. He wore a dark gray suit and carried a leather folder. There was nothing flashy about his appearance, no name badge, no pin. He didn't scan the room for faces because he already knew what he'd find. Two white officers at the defense table, both broad-shouldered, both appearing uninterested. The one on the left leaned back and said something to the other, who snorted in response, smirking like a high schooler in detention. Nathaniel didn't react. He'd seen worse in places colder, quieter, and far more dangerous. Places where power wore masks instead of uniforms. "Mr. Rourke," the clerk called, gesturing to the witness stand. He stepped forward, calm and measured. He wasn't in a rush. Time, after all, had always been on his side. As he passed the defense table, he met the eyes of Officer Scott Kinley, mid-40s, receding hairline, chewing gum like a teenager. Kinley stared for a second too long before leaning toward his partner. "Probably another diversity hire," he muttered just loud enough. "Bet he teaches at some liberal arts college." His partner, Officer Blake Danvers, chuckled beneath his breath. Watch him start talking about systemic trauma. Nathaniel heard them. So did the bailiff. No one intervened. The judge, whose face seemed permanently tired, tapped his pen as if waiting for lunch. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor said. "Nathaniel Franklin Rourke," he replied. "And your occupation, Mr. Rourke?" "I work in government," he said simply. No further elaboration. The prosecutor didn't press. Their strategy was to let the testimony speak for itself. Kinley muttered again. "Government, huh? Probably from some think tank." Danvers smirked. "Bet he's at a podcast." Nathaniel sat, posture straighter than the cheap chair allowed. His gaze didn't wander. He wasn't here to admire murals or dusty flags. He was watching the men who thought they were watching him. The questions started slow. Basic. What had he reviewed? Why had he been asked to testify? Routine procedural matters. In a gallery, a woman in a light blue blouse with neatly braided hair sat clutching a manila folder. She was likely in her 30s. Beside her sat a young man, barely 20, a scar across his cheekbone. His expression didn't change as Nathaniel spoke. Danvers leaned toward Kinley. "Those shoes, though. Fancy. He's a DC guy for sure." Kinley chuckled. "He'll cry about justice. Watch." Nathaniel turned a page in his notes. Calm. Controlled. He breathed slowly, evenly. The judge raised a hand. "Stick to facts, Mr. Rourke. No opinions." Nathaniel nodded. "Facts are all I brought, Your Honor." Still, no one in that room knew who they were dealing with. No one had Googled his name. Not the defense, not even the judge. Because Nathaniel Rourke didn't want them to know. Not yet. To understand why, you'd have to go back 30 years to a kitchen table in Little Rock, Arkansas. A young Nathaniel sat across from his father, a welder with thick hands and a quiet dignity. That morning, his father said something that never left him. "They won't see your title, son. They'll see what they expect. Let that be your advantage." Nathaniel lived by that. He didn't grow up with money, but he had order and discipline. He paid his way through college at the University of Oklahoma. Criminal justice major, foreign policy minor. No parties. No noise. Just books, early gym sessions, and overnight library shifts. He applied twice to a competitive DC counterterrorism fellowship that rarely took applicants without Ivy League pedigrees. He got in on his second try. By the end of that year, no one doubted he belonged. Nathaniel didn't climb. He ascended, quietly, without scandal, without needing to be seen. Just consistent work, sharp instincts, and a mind that remembered everything. By 40, he directed counterintelligence operations. By 50, he sat in situation room meetings. Then came a call from the president, an appointment to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Nathaniel accepted on one condition: no press conference. Just a line in a memo. Because he didn't need recognition. He needed results. That's why this case was personal. He wasn't here as a director. He wasn't even here as a federal official. He was here because among hundreds of files, one caught his eye. The name, Damian Holloway. Veteran. Clean record. Disciplined. The same Damian he had once cleared for a federal internship program. Now, Damian had a metal plate in his jaw and permanent nerve damage in his hand. All from a cracked taillight and a routine stop. Nathaniel asked for the full case file. And when he saw the names Scott Kinley and Blake Danvers, his stomach turned. Patterns. Same officers. Same flawed paperwork. Same missing footage. He didn't call D.C. He called the courthouse. I'll testify, he said. No need to mention who I am. He booked a budget motel, drove himself, wore an unassuming suit. Because it was never about him. It was about the truth. Kinley and Danvers weren't rookies. They weren't corrupt in the traditional sense. No drug deals, no mob ties. Just a belief that the badge protected them from consequences. They thought this hearing was a formality. A few questions, some PR damage, a few weeks at a desk. Their lawyer, Charles Royce, had the kind of arrogance that came from winning small-town cases without ever being challenged. He hadn't counted on Nathaniel. When Nathaniel took the stand, Royce barely glanced at him. But then he noticed something. The calm, the control, the precision. This wasn't a man you could rattle. The prosecutor asked, Mr. Rourke, what did you review? Nathaniel answered methodically. Dashcam, dispatch logs, internal patrol records, an internal affairs summary that had never been forwarded to the oversight board. Royce objected. Your Honor, we weren't made aware of an internal summary. He's a witness, the judge said. Let him speak. Nathaniel continued. He pointed out time discrepancies, body cam failures, and unscheduled stops that were never logged. He had copies, receipts. He wasn't speculating. He was indicting with data. He cited federal oversight databases. He mentioned repeated infractions by Kinley's supervisor. He presented use of force patterns involving the same demographic. 5 other victims. 1 dead by suicide. The courtroom was silent. Danvers blinked rapidly. Kinley stared at the floor. Royce finally asked, Under whose authority did you review these materials? Nathaniel replied, Mine. And that authority is? I am a director of Homeland Security. It didn't land like a movie twist. It settled like a weight. 1 juror sat up straight. Another exhaled slowly. Nathaniel pulled out a single sheet. This is a notice of a federal inquiry into this department's abuse patterns. Effective this morning. 2 people in a gallery stood. DOJ observers. Royce paled. Danvers whispered, This isn't real. It's very real, Nathaniel said. The system you counted on just ran out of excuses. Kinley whispered, You set us up. No, Nathaniel replied. You did. He handed an envelope to the bailiff. The gallery was stunned. From the back, Damian Holloway stood. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Nathaniel adjusted his jacket, nodded once toward Damian, and turned to leave. Every badge carries weight, he said, and every abuse of that badge carries a cost. If not today, then tomorrow. But it will be paid. Outside, reporters rushed forward. They already knew his name. He didn't flinch. He kept walking. He wasn't there for applause. He was there to make sure the mirror stayed up long enough for the guilty to see themselves. That night, he stayed in the same motel. No abras. At dawn, he drank coffee and scribbled in a notepad. No fanfare. At a diner across town, Damian sat with his mother. I didn't think anyone would show up, he said. She squeezed his hand. Someone did. Nathaniel didn't follow up. He didn't need to. Justice had spoken. Back in D.C., a photo was waiting on his desk. It showed him the courtroom. A note was clipped to it. Some rooms need you to speak louder than the microphone. He smiled. Slightly. The system wouldn't fall in a day. But maybe, just maybe, it cracked a little. And someone, somewhere was watching. Quiet power doesn't need noise. It just needs the right moment to speak.